Starting a service business? Don't. Not until you hear this. Most people screw it up by trusting the wrong partner, picking the wrong location, or putting rent before revenue. I'm going to give it to you straight. 3 harsh truths that could save you thousands of dollars. So the first piece of advice is choosing a business partner. A lot of people, myself included, when I started my cleaning business, thought that, you know what, you need a partner. You need that extra help so that you got a 2-man team, and it'll probably save you revenue because you're both in it to grow it. But that's not really what happens if you're choosing the wrong person. And I had my first business partner absolutely sucked. It was actually very destructive to my business. My second business partner was phenomenal. He was absolutely amazing. And the difference between the two was a couple of things. One is my first business partner, she saw it all as a job. She didn't actually see it as owning a business. She was wondering why she wasn't getting paid holidays and paid time off and vacation time and all that other stuff. And it's like, you're starting a business. What the hell is going on? What the hell's wrong with you? And the other issue that I had was that when we would go into a house, because I started off with house cleaning and then moved into the janitorial side. But when we would go into a house, we would get a customer that would be like, yes, you guys do absolutely great cleaning. So we had a 4.27 rating with almost 200 reviews. They were all authentic. And people would say, yes, we love you. And then as we were cleaning up, she would get a wild hair up her butt and then pick a fight. And the customer would overhear it. And as we're walking out the door, she would leave. And as I was, following behind her, the customer would stop me and say, hey, I'd like to cancel that appointment. And instead of being able to grow, that it actually hampered us. And instead of being able to hit $100,000, $200,000 in my first year, that was a big part in stunting my growth. Because if you don't have somebody that you can be cohesive with and that works with you and can tolerate your quirks and all that other stuff, because in a lot of ways it's like being married. My successful one was an employee that I brought on, and he was such a good worker. I absolutely enjoyed him, and he took part ownership of the business in the sense of what he was doing. As an employer, you know what I'm talking about. And so I said, look, I'll give you sweat equity. I will pay you this, but your normal wage is going to be this. And I'm taking this out as, to be able to pay for your portion for your 49% of the business, because you always want to maintain to 51% shares to maintain control, because the last thing you want is 2 chiefs and no Indians. It makes for a very contentious thing. The thing is him and I were both not really money motivated. We were more happy about the quality of the work that we were doing and the satisfaction of that than how much money we were making. And so therefore it made it so much easier for us to coexist because we were on the same page a lot of the time. The second piece of advice that I would like to give you is location. Now, when I originally started my cleaning business, I was in Oregon. In Oregon, I was making good money, but I kept hearing, oh yeah, there's so much money to be made in Texas and so on and so forth. Well, being in the service industry, if you go into any area that has an issue or has a high population of undocumenteds and stuff like that, you're going to have a lot more of a struggle, because they hang out in 3 main fields: construction, landscaping, and cleaning. That includes house cleaning for the females and janitorial for the males. Okay, so going from Oregon to Texas was probably one of the worst mistakes I made. It was part of what led me down the path to where I would eventually have to close my business anyways, because when you're competing with somebody that could hire somebody at $7 an hour and charge $10 a man hour, and have all the business they want, because you can't get anybody for less than $12 an hour plus your chemicals and overhead, you're just scraping by at $15 a man hour. And this is like 5-6 years ago. You're scraping by at $15 a man hour, and you can't compete with somebody that can do it for 10. And so therefore it makes it so much harder for you as a business to be able to be able to grow and to thrive, like all the stories I was hearing about Texas. If you weren't in one of those 3 fields, you probably had a better chance of success. But also if you also got to look at the layout of the land. To be able to get back and forth to the appointments, we had to take tolls. I spent $800 a month on tolls alone. Those tolls took a huge chunk out of my bottom line, not to mention having to compete with people that could do it for a third of the price that I could, and you're competing on that level. It all of a sudden makes it so much harder for you to be able to grow your business. So if you're going to start a service business, make sure that you stay out of those three fields. If you're in an area where there's a heavy amount of immigrants, if you're not, then the door's wide open and people will pay you what you are worth, and that is the most important thing. And the last piece of advice that I would give you is that your business comes before your rent. A lot of people might sit there and shake their head and go, "What are you talking about?" Here's the thing. Your business, in a lot of ways, it's like a child. You got to grow it. You got to nurture it. You got to get it up. You got to get it going. And so sometimes you're going to have the ebb and flow. In cleaning, there are certain parts of the year where nobody calls. It's pretty much considered off season for about 2 or 3 months out of the year. How do you survive that? Well, if you haven't got enough money saved off to the side, and you just and instead of making sure that you have enough money to keep your business going, you pay your rent. What you're doing is you're putting the nail in your coffin, not only of your business but your whole livelihood, because you're choosing to pay rent over your business, and so therefore your priorities are mismatched. And when they're mismatched like this, what ends up happening is not only will you lose your place, but you're going to lose your business too. At the bare minimum, like I had to when we relocated from Oregon to Texas, I slept in the back of my SUV next to my equipment. So half of the SUV was my equipment, the other half was me crumbled up in a small little hole, just so that I could have some place to sleep at night, go into the gym, take my shower, go out, go run my appointments until I felt comfortable enough that I had enough revenue coming in, not only to support the business, but to be able to pay rent. And even when I got rid of my first business partner, I had to go through the same thing, because at the end of the day, your business is going to be your lifeline. In the same way that a YouTube channel for a content creator is their lifeline, whereas if everything's going bad, the quickest way to make money is through the digital economy. Okay, but taking it over into a service business side, the quickest way for you to make money is to have a phone call to go do a job and to get paid for it immediately, versus a job that you have to go wait 2-3 weeks to get paid, and you may end up running through an eviction. This is extremely important. So if you are considering starting a service business, you should consider these 3 brutal truths, because if you don't, life could be a little bit crazier for you. All right, guys, thank you for watching. I hope that you guys got some value out of this. If you have, please consider hitting that subscribe button. This is my second channel. My main channel that I work on is the Epoch of Friar Tuck. If you curious to see more of my work, you can come over there. But this is a new channel that I'm building because I want to teach people the knowledge that I was able to gain over through the years that I owned a business, multiple businesses over the years, and even again after losing my janitorial business due to what was going on at the border, and just everything else that was going on along with it. I had no choice but to close down my doors and realize that, and this is a final piece of advice if you've stuck around this long, I realized that you cannot run an employee-centered business anymore. It is very hard if you are down in areas like, let's say, Texas or Southern California, anywhere where you have to deal with a heavy volume of undocumented. It is destructive to home service business like you, or at least what you're trying to consider. So, this is something that you might also want to keep in thoughts is, before you even start your first 10 jobs, start looking around for people that if you gave them a call and you were willing to pay them, give them a specific amount of what you expect to pay them, if they would be willing to come on board and work for you starting part-time and then work their way up to full-time, that you need to network for your first few employees. That was one of my mistakes that I made that I didn't realize until it was too late. So don't make that same mistake. I hope to see you in the next video.